Marco's laugh was low and warm and rolling. He started unwrapping his hands. It would have been so easy to hurt him while he did it that she was fairly certain he had a hidden way to defend himself. And if not, the impression that he might was defense enough. She wasn't here to kill him. She was here to push him into saying something. Locking her in a cage would have been a tacit admission she was a threat. He wanted her to see that she was powerless, to make the prison walls herself. There had been a time it would have worked. She was betting that he didn't realize that time had passed, and she was betting that it had passed. When he narrowed his eyes at her, shaking his head, she still felt the tug of humiliation in her throat, familiar as an old habit, so perhaps the truth was more complicated. Hey guys, Pete here. A bit of time has passed since we watched episode 6 of season 5 of The Expanse, so now it's time to discuss and preview episode 7. If you're not familiar with my weekly release schedule, this is a continuation of the breakdown I did right after episode 6 aired. We're going to look at where all the characters' stories left off, some of the details that we might have missed on the first watch, and put that all together for speculation on where things are headed in episode 7. This will contain spoilers for everything that happened through episode 6, but since Amazon hasn't been doing trailers or promos for season 5, if you're caught up, then there won't be anything you haven't seen here. As someone who's read all the books, I will be referring to them, but I won't be giving away future spoilers there either. With all that out of the way, let's get into it. For Avasarala's part of the story, we did get a new acting secretary general, and as I mentioned in my episode breakdown, he is out of his depth, but he's smart enough to know that, which is a good sign, and he's looking to Avasarala for guidance in the midst of this emergency. An interesting detail while they're talking is that we can see some of the statistics on the screen behind him when he comes in the room. On that, we can see that the feed is titled UNN Luna Incident Report and it's encrypted. And then we can see some of the numbers if we zoom in. We see that it says seawalls breached 42%, flooding 45%, casualties 9%. There's a marker of where the Haesung Tower used to be, and it says homelessness 29%. Considering how little time has passed since the rocks dropped, I'm guessing the real details of how bad things are on Earth is going to come at the end of the season. Maybe the second to last episode or the last episode. I'm guessing we'll get bits and pieces along the way, but it does seem like they're putting that off as a reveal, and this tweet from the writer's account says that those inconsistencies that we've seen are deliberate. So I guess if we look at the other stories and the amount of time that it's going to take Amos and Peaches to get to Baltimore, it's kind of like it's going to take the UN that same amount of time to get a handle on exactly how bad these impacts are going to be for the planet as a whole. Alongside of that, we know that Avasarala is also going to be dealing with her personal issue, which is that she can't get a hold of her husband, and it's starting to feel like he might not be okay. Another interesting detail in this scene, I mentioned it in the comments, a lot of people pointed out that the names in her contact list were characters from TV shows. Then I saw this post from Shaky51 on the Expanse subreddit, and he pointed out that all of these are characters from TV shows who had multiple actors play them. Darren Stevens from Bewitched, The Mountain from Game of Thrones, Becky Connor from Roseanne, and so on. It's funny because obviously Arjun had been played by two actors as well over the series. So that's all we really know about things with the UN. Avasarala is back in a position where she has a chance to do something about what's happening, and we'll wait to find out how bad things really are. Another place where we're going to see some of that damage is with Amos and Peaches. They've got a long way to travel, and they need to stay off the radar because of the authorities. Obviously, Clarissa is a convict without a prison, but Amos is also operating under a false identity. Eric warned him that he wasn't sure the identification of Amos Burton that he transferred to Timmy would hold up under scrutiny. If you listen closely when they approached the relief station, you could hear an announcement saying that if you don't have an ID, you'll have to submit to DNA testing. So in the last episode, we saw that Amos and Peaches are on their own and they're heading towards Baltimore. He mentioned that he knew people there, the kind you want to be around in times like this. That sounds like Eric and his crew, but we can't forget that he told Amos that he'd kill him if he ever came back to his town. There's still a lot of distance in between them and Baltimore, and they did pick up supplies and a pair of bikes at the preppers' compound. I would guess that not much will happen in the days it takes them to get there. We might check in to see what the damage looks like, but it seems likely that the action in their story won't pick up until they get there. These two coming together and their traveling is all about character development, and I think we saw most of that in the last episode. So their story might take a back seat for a little while. We saw with Holden, he is taking the Roci and they're going after the Zmeya. He has his temporary crew that's led by Bull, and Monica has joined them. After thinking about this some, I kind of like the idea that Monica is along for the ride. She's not one of my favorite characters overall in the series, but Holden is cut off from communicating with Naomi and Amos, and with Fred being out of the picture, Monica and her contacts might be useful. They could help to inform Holden about what's going on in the belt. She was able to get her hands on a video feed of Cortazar being kidnapped, and she may turn out to be really useful in this storyline. After all, she did get the flight path of the Zmeya, and so now they will be trying to chase down the stolen protomolecule sample. Moving on to Alex and Bobbie, they were able to get out of their last scrape with the Free Navy, and they are back up and running, but the Razorback isn't a gunship, so they can't really do much other than flee the Free Navy. It's not like they can engage with them. Also, enough time has probably passed at this point that they have no chance of catching back up with the Barkeith. Sauveterre and Babbage are probably gone for all intents and purposes. They seem to make their pass off to the Free Navy with those ships. We heard Drummer's crew say that it was a light cruiser, which is the Pella, and 2 heavy frigates, which is what they were traveling with. As their escorts, those are the ships that they dropped off. It seems like that part of their mission is now complete, as Marco has those ships. Unlike the other members of the Roci crew, Alex is able to contact Holden as far as we could tell, so it's possible that they might enter into that hunt for the Zmeya. Beyond that, we're just not sure at this point, so I'd be interested to hear what you guys think these two are going to get into in the comments. One of the biggest developments in episode 6 was Drummer and her family making the tough decision to join up with the Free Navy. Drummer sees the writing on the wall. As she's on the Pella and she's getting ready to meet with Marco, she says that he's consolidating support amongst the factions of the belt, and Oksana says if he has Black Sky and Golden Bow with him, then half the OPA will rally to his banner. I think the conversation she had with Marco did a great job of setting up a very tenuous partnership that we have to imagine might fail down the road. We know she has no respect for Marco on a personal level because of the deaths of Ashford and Fred. She made this plain. Her crewmates know this, and from the conversation we could see that Marco knows this as well. At the same time, her and her family believe that joining sides with him and these other factions of the OPA is the best way for them to ensure their own survival. They've traded crewmates, with Marco sending Corral onto Drummer's ship, and I think at the very least, this is an indication that he knows he can't exactly trust Drummer, so he wants one of his best people to be there to watch her. There could be more to that, but we'll have to wait and see. As far as what comes next with Drummer and her part of the story, when she saw Filip, she figured out that Naomi was on the ship based off of what he said. That may play a part in how she feels about this arrangement, but it doesn't really change the reality of the situation. They can't get into a fight with Marco. He way outpowers everyone in the belt. So it's very possible that we won't see all that much more happen with this in this season. You know, there was a big conversation online going on about how people thought that the last episode was a filler episode. I would disagree with that on the basis of the definition of a filler episode, and then also disagree with anybody who said nothing happened in that episode. But all of that aside, the reality of these two books, Book 5 and 6, is that they are a duology. Book 5 introduces the Free Navy. The dynamics in the system change. We see what the stakes are. The characters move around and they grow, and it all works to make it matter when we get to the conclusion of this part of the series. It's definitely going somewhere. You can trust me on that. But I'm not sure that we'll get resolutions to all the different storylines before the end of season 6. One place where I do expect some movement soon, if not the next episode, then in the next 2 episodes at the very least, is with Naomi's story and her being a captive on the Pella. Just like episode 6 was heavy on the Amos story, I think we have one of those coming up for Naomi really soon. In the last episode, we saw that Filip was kind of warming up to her, and we can imagine that's something that Marco won't be happy about. And that'll be on top of the fact that Sin has already kind of stuck his neck neck out for her and got in Marco's face in front of the entire crew. I mentioned in my breakdown that I was a little unsure of the way they're depicting Marco, and then I had a lot of people asking for details in the comments. What it boils down to is that we're missing Naomi telling us who Marco is in her eyes. And I open with an excerpt from one of her chapters so you can get an idea of how that works. What the character's doing on the show might be 100% in line with what he did in the books, but it feels different to me without that framing. And I trust the writers, they've earned that. I'm just saying that as a fan who has expectations, TV show Marco has made some decisions that don't make sense to me at this point. And I say that all knowing very well that it all might make sense in a couple of episodes. Another thing that some people mentioned in the comments is that Marco is actually doing a lot of stuff, but we don't actually see what any of it is. At the end of the episode, we see him watching Naomi and Filip together, and then we see him pull up this display of his fleet where he's thinking about using the Chetsmoka, which she arrived on, to intercept the Rocinante on its way to the Zmeya. So most of what we see Marco doing is talking to the other characters, but there's a whole lot of other stuff going on that hasn't yet been revealed. Based on him looking at the Roci chasing after the Zmeya, I think we could say that he is going to be planning on doing something with that in the next episode. And obviously, Naomi will be trying to do her best to undermine anything he's doing and trying to get herself out of this situation and back to her crew on the Roci. The name of the episode is the Belter word for goodbye. And I saw the idea out there that we might see this flashback scene from the trailer where Filip's a child in the happy times of Marco and Naomi's relationship, considering that she had to say goodbye to that family because of the way that things were. There's definitely a possibility of that, and there's also the possibility that she has to say goodbye again, so that's something to think about. So I think that covers where everybody's at, and that seems like a good place to leave it. Let me know in the comments what you think's going to happen, your theories, your predictions, what you're hoping to see. Please like this video if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.